Hey guys, you well? We're carrying on Everyday Supernatural. Um, Page 82, all of 83 and a little bit of 84. And doing whatever he tells us. And there was a story that I was going to tell you last week that I forgot about. And then reading this again has sort of reminded me. And the big chunk of this is Mike talking about being at Momentum, which is Soul Survivor for those in 20s and 30s, and God giving him a word that someone was having an affair with their minister, and Mike was like, God, how am I meant to give this? But he did, and it turned out that there was a lady there, and she'd been having an affair with the youth minister of the church, who was married, and she just, was. I've gone to God with this. I don't know how to do it. Thank you. And Mike, if he hadn't given that word, maybe that affair wouldn't have stopped. It would have gone to more damage than it already did and probably caused. But Mike did what God told him to do. And I've never had one of those moments where God's told me to do something that I felt totally wrong for, or how am I going to do it? If you've been to Soul Survivor, Mike talks about in one of his talks, he's spoken about how he was at a conference and God kept giving him a word which was skudula, which is a really offensive word, I believe, in Greek, for basically human fecal matter. And Mike was asked to pray for a lady, and he prayed for her, and this word kept coming, and he was like, how do I say this? And then he was reminded, just say it. I've got it. Reminded of that whole Peter got out that boat, as we've looked at the past couple of weeks. Peter got out the boat and let Jesus do the rest. And it turned out this lady had been in an abusive relationship with a guy who called her this. And how Mike was to ever known, he wasn't it, but Jesus knew, and Jesus wanted to meet that lady where she was and give her compassion and release her from that hurt that she had. And again, I can't recall things like that where I've stepped out of the boat for God like that, and those amazing things that have happened. But the first bit, doing whatever it is, tells us, it says here, for those who haven't got the book, it's bottom of page 82, this works out in different ways for all of us, but it generally involves the ingredients of Peter's story. We have to step out. We often feel frightened and as if we're drowning, but then we discover the intimacy with Jesus. And afterwards, like disciples, we end up worshipping him full of awe at who Jesus is. And a real reminder story for me was I just started being a youth worker. I was still a teacher at this point, and this was sort of like what I did in my spare time at a church. And it was this time of year, actually. It was coming up to Halloween, or let's call it its real name, Samhain. And those of you who know me know my feelings, and we've spoken about that in the past. But it was Halloween night, Samhain night. And we had got together as a youth group and got, okay, what are we going to do? And we went out praying around the village that our church was in, and offering people in, instead of trick-or-treating, come in and I get cake and coffee. And it was a brilliant idea, but I felt totally and utterly out of my depth. And I knew we were taking on spiritual stuff, and I know that the enemy has got some power. Our Lord has got far more power over him, but I felt totally and utterly, this isn't going to work. How am I going to do it? What's going to happen? It's going to be a nightmare. There's going to be problems. There might be fights. People are going to get hurt. We're taking on spiritual battle. All of these things of going, I can't do it. The week leading up, I can't do it. And a mate of mine at the time was trained to be a vicar at Nottingham, and he came up and sort of took part in the night with us. I thought, I need as much Christian backing as we can. And we just had an incredible night. And we had, the church hall was rammed with young people who weren't out trick-or-treating, causing problems, were hanging out with us and drinking teas and coffees and squash and eating cake. And we were telling them about Jesus, and we were talking about why we didn't celebrate Samhain, and told them about the victory, and told them that it wasn't just a fun little festival, that actually there's bad spiritual stuff going on. And it was just an amazing time. And we said last week about sort of walking hand in hand, Peter then sort of, it all goes belly up. He decides to get out of the boat. I sort of decided to get out of the boat and let's do this Halloween stuff with a load of other people. It wasn't just me. There was a really amazing team at that church. Some are still there, and some really amazing young people in our youth group that we had. And we got out of that boat and then was worried about drowning. And of course, after that night, I drove my mate back to Nottingham and then drove up. I don't think I've even ever told anyone this, but I spent like 45 minutes, an hour's drive back to our house in the Peak District crying. And crying in praise and thanks for Jesus, and had just a real intimate time with Jesus. And it genuinely felt like he was sat next to me in the passenger seat as I wept for joy and just thanked him. And it was, like that, getting out of the boat. Getting out of the boat, starting to sink, feeling scared, but it's all right, Jesus is there with us. And then afterwards, rejoicing with Jesus and just crying tears of happiness and thanks to him. And singing songs to him for all that he'd done, and just an intimate time with him. And I wouldn't have had that time with him had I not got out the boat and gone, let's do this. I could have gone, nah, let's just meet in church in our little holy huddle. But it was like, no, we should get out and do stuff. So I just want to encourage you guys to get out and do stuff. And if you feel God saying do it or say it, do it and say it. He's got you, the same way I had Peter then. And he had me that night at that church. And the spiritual stuff that went on at that church after that occasion, really soon after that occasion, like within 7-8 months, spiritual bad stuff. And maybe some of that was linked, but the same way Peter got out of the boat and did it, we need to get out of the boat and do it. And I'd encourage you to do that. If you feel God telling you to do something, get out of the boat and do it. Do it with other people. Peter did it by himself with the other 11 disciples looking on, going, oh my days, what's happening? I did it with my mate from down south and with a team at that last church. I just encourage you to pray and listen to what God's put on your heart for him. And get out and do the stuff. Have a good week. Next week's half term. We're gonna have a session off. We're gonna have a week off. I need a week off from videoing and trying to come up with this stuff. Trusting him, of course, that he's got it. But have a good half term. I'll see you next week, and hopefully see you on the youth soon too. See you guys later. God bless. Bye.